Good morning. It's Tuesday, October 15th, and we're going to pick up where we left off yesterday. But it's the beginning of class, so please have out your materials. You know what to do. Please have your materials on your desk. You're going to need your planner because we're going to be writing in it. You'll need your notebook so that you can take notes, and you will need your volcano reading packets again. So take about 30 seconds to get those out. Make sure you've got everything. All right. So you've got your planner out. The first thing we do is write in our planners. Remember, our guest teacher is with us again today, so copy the following sentence to remind yourself. Write it down. I'll be checking. I will be kind and respectful. Reminder, Library Day is Thursday. You need to have your ID with you. What standards are we working on today? We're going to analyze elements of fiction and nonfiction. We're going to be looking at what things are in both and what things are special to only one type of writing, so that when you write your own fiction and nonfiction, you'll know what you should include. And we're going to analyze writer's craft. What did they do that was effective, so that when you write, you can use some of the same strategies. And you will be doing a close reading of Sasquatch Chapter 7 with margin notes. All right. Today we will begin by comparing different types of text structure. In your writing packet, not the reading one, in the writing packet, find this graphic organizer. It looks like this. If you didn't bring your writing packet, take a minute and copy this graphic organizer into your notebook. If you didn't bring your material, you're going to have to make it yourself. So if you have it, you've saved yourself a little bit of writing. If you didn't bring it, you need to make your page. Give yourself 5 columns. And 9 rows. So as you can see, what we're going to be doing is looking at what text structure is in the writing. We'll start by looking at the poetry that you read yesterday, and you're just going to identify, are these things in there or are they not? Then you're going to read a piece of fiction, and you're going to look to see if these things are in there or not. And finally, we'll read a piece of nonfiction and see what text structures are in that so that we can compare them. All right, so let's start with the poetry. You already read the poetry. We're not filling out the purpose yet until we have all 3 in. So let's ask ourselves some questions about the poem Volcanoes by Valerie. Forgot her last name. Oops. So, first row. Did the poetry contain titles or subtitles? If it did, put yes in the square. If it did not, put no. If you're not sure, go back and look at that poem. You copied it down. Were there any bold or italicized words in the poem? Fill in the square, yes or no. Were there any pictures or graphics that went along with that poem? Yes or no? Was it written in paragraphs? Yes or no? Fill in the box. Did it have sentences? Yes or no? Fill in the box. Did it contain quotations? Did it have captions? Did the poetry have formal or informal language? All right, so we've looked at poetry and we've identified some of the text structures we see, not in all poetry, but in the poem Volcano. And now we're going to analyze, we're going to look at closely some other types of texts and the structures we see there. We're going to be comparing and contrasting. Comparing means we're going to see what's the same, and contrasting means we're going to see what is different between fiction and nonfiction writing. So in your readings packet, we have chapter 7 from a fiction novel called Sasquatch, and we have chapter 1 from a nonfiction work called Bodies from the Ash. So the first thing you're going to do is you're not reading, you're simply looking at to see what you notice about the text. So with the people at your table, with an elbow partner, open your reading packet, look at the Sasquatch excerpt, and in the margins or on the sides of the paper, write some of the text structures you see. If you're wondering what text structures are you looking for, look back at your graphic organizer. You can underline some examples. The guest teacher is going to pause for about 2 minutes while you and the people at your table note the text structures that you see in Sasquatch. When you finish looking at Sasquatch, continue on in your readings packet and look at Bodies from the Ash. Same thing. Take 2 minutes with your table or an elbow partner and list the text structures that you can see in the writing. The guest teacher will pause this video for a minute, for 2 minutes, and give you time to do your comparison. You're not reading, you're just looking to see what's there. Does one have pictures? Does one have dialogue? What do you see in each type of reading? So we're going to pause now. All right. Now that you've finished looking at the 2 different types of writing, make some margin notes about what you noticed. Now go back into your graphic organizer and let's fill in about 6 to 10 of the boxes from text structure. You can do this as a whole class, and after you've done about 6, I'll expect you to finish the rest of the graphic organizer on your own. Okay, so we're looking at our graphic organizer, which is this, and we're going to fill in a couple of these together, and then you're going to have some time on your own. So let's talk about titles and subtitles. Were those in fiction? Well, fiction definitely had titles at the beginning of each chapter, so you know that you have ended one section and started the other. What about in the nonfiction? The nonfiction had both titles and subtitles. So you were in a chapter, and then within the chapter, you had smaller informational headings called subtitles. Didn't have subtitles in fiction, though, just titles. And poetry? Well, it did have a title. The name of the poem is the title, but no subtitles. Let's see, what else did we have? Pictures and graphics. They were in nonfiction. Yes, so put yes in that box. And then go in and fill out, did you have them in the fiction story? Yes or no? Did you have them in the poetry? Yes or no? Fill those in. And then paragraphs. Which type of writing had paragraphs? Poetry did not have paragraphs. In poetry, when we have breaks, they're called stanzas, so poetry never has paragraphs. What about nonfiction? Did it have paragraphs or not? You can go look. And what about fiction? Did it have paragraphs or not? Go look, fill in your blanks. Now, the fiction definitely had quotations. You had lots of dialogue, people speaking. And then go take a look at your nonfiction and your poetry. Were those there? Nonfiction had captions. Under the pictures, it had words explaining what they were. Did you have any captions in fiction or poetry? Go fill those in. The fiction piece of writing was very informal. It had normal vocabulary like you and I would use when we speak. On the other hand, the poetry was very formal. It had high-level vocabulary. It spoke in a way that most people don't normally speak in. It's called elevated language. And then take a look at the nonfiction. What do you think? Was that formal or informal? So take about 3 more minutes. The guest teacher is going to pause this. Take about 3 minutes on your own because you're going to have to do some reading. And see if you can fill in the rest of the blanks on this graphic organizer page. So we're going to pause this right here. All right, now that you've given a rough glance at these, I want you to read the excerpt from Sasquatch. You're going to read silently. The Chapter 7 excerpt is just a couple of pages, and you're going to look at the author's craft. I want you to specifically look at the things that you feel the author did well. Make notes as you read. If there's any part that you find confusing, put a question mark next to it. If there's any part that you really liked or found interesting, you're going to put an exclamation point. And if there's anything that you can make a connection with, oh, like this reminds me of that movie I saw, or this is kind of like that other book, or oh my gosh, this kid sounds like my brother. That kid's dad is crazy. He reminds me of my uncle. Anything that you can make a connection with. Text to text, text to self, or text to anything else, you put a star next to it. And then also underline anything that you would consider a golden line. Underline anything that you liked the way that it was worded, if it was a description or a conversation. Underline it and be prepared to share why you liked that piece of writing when I'm back in class on Wednesday. So the guest teacher is going to pause this and give you 5 minutes to read and mark the text. pausing now. And if you still have time, do the same thing with bodies from the ash. If you've got time and the bell, you still have a few minutes till the bell, start reading Bodies from the Ash. Same thing. Make notes in the margins as you go. There's place for it on the page. If there's any part that was confusing, mark it with a question mark. Mark any interesting parts with an exclamation. Mark anything that you make a connection to with a star. Underline your favorite parts. As always, be prepared to tell me why you liked it. Don't just say, I like that picture. You're going to have to explain to me why. If you have any time at the end of the class, finish reading this section. The guest teacher will hit pause and leave these directions on the board till the end of the class.